Excellent. Good afternoon again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We'll get to the JRC in a moment. First, the disclaimers and the trigger warnings. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links are right there in the description box. Please, in particular, take note of, first off, the link for Autistic Hoya's massive archive. It has everything in regards to the JRC, both for and against them, court transcripts, ER documentation, links to video surveillance footage like what happened to Andre McCollins back in the day. It's got the blogs both speaking for and against the JRC. It is an absolute fundamental resource to understand what exactly we folks have been fighting against for multiple decades. Also linked in there is NeuroClass's article. They surveyed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the Judge Rothberg Educational Center's so-called behavior modification program. It's the exact same one that JRC threatened them with a defamation lawsuit over if Neuroclastic did not remove the article from their website. Neuroclastic very obviously refused, so please read it and share it. We also have linked in there Neuroclastic's GoFundMe in case the JRC ever does see through with their threat, because unlike them, we unfortunately do not have access to unlimited Benjamins. More's the pity. If you can donate, I know they'd appreciate it, but as everybody's pretty much strapped right now, or we're all getting ready to be, if you could even share it too, I know they really appreciate that. Trigger warnings. When we discuss places like the Judge Rothberg Educational School, Tobin World, Circle of Hope, Agape Boarding School, Kennecott Camp, and all similar places like them. You're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you do got young children present, at the very least, please utilize headphones. Also, this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We do use profanity and we do speak on dark subjects. If your child's 16 and younger and they are watching this, parental supervision is very obviously advised. Alright, folks, so we're going to read half of the next paragraph. I'll try to make it short because I still got another video to do for the Medicaid series today, and God, then I'm going to have to start digging up and doing research for the HUD situation now, because our government apparently never sleeps and is constantly thinking about ways on how to unceremoniously destroy a lot of the supports, funding, and help that people like myself rely on to continue to not just live, but to live out in our own communities. So, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Anyways, let me get started here. Given the nature of the dispute, the need to have a neutral review of the facts, and the stakes for the patients themselves, the parties are entitled to an evidentiary hearing. This is especially so given the heavy reliance by the FDA on superstition and guesswork, and its plain refusal to credit the comprehensive material already provided to it, and its failure to accept the invitation extended multiple times over the years to examine the small group of patients themselves, interview their parents and clinicians, review their individual histories and records, and observe how ESDs are actually employed in practice with the safeguards that are used at the JRC. How many times do I have to explain this to you, JRC? The FDA do not want any part of your propaganda tour. You want to know why? Because they already know it's bullshit. They know it's bullshit because one of the documents that they reviewed was the assessment that was carried out by the New York State Department of Education back in 2006. You remember that, right? You see, you're not going to find out what's really going on behind closed doors by taking a specially curated propaganda tour. You're just going to get fed propaganda and have smoke blown up your ass. Nobody has time for that. The reason why, and remember, I've been a part of these groups when I used to work with the state. The group of us folks that would come in, that I have always called when things go wrong. Those visits are unannounced for a very specific reason. Because that is the point in time when we want to see what you don't want us to see. We know you are hiding things when that type of group is coming in unannounced. You're not going to uncover that by announcing your visit ahead of time and giving people like you, JRC, enough time to cover your tracks, hide all your multiple crimes against the most vulnerable of our population, and then take you through the propaganda tour. All of us are very well versed in your propaganda tour and in your abuse apologetics. Okay? Let's dissect this here, shall we? First of all, we have already done the neutral review of the facts, JRC. The initial hearings took place in regards to your device from 2014 to 2016. It's 2 years. 2 years. Within that time frame, both those opposed to the GED and those for the GED was given the same amount of time to be able to present their case for or against the GED device. Okay? What really happened during that time period? Let's talk about the so-called comprehensive material provided to the FDA by the JRC for the billionth time. You provided clinical studies that are so laughably outdated that no one in this field would ever take them seriously, let alone provide them with the same amount of relevance and weight to clinical studies provided from those against the GED. You know, literally the rest, literally the entirety, of the medical model, with clinical studies and data in regards to at least 3 different alternative treatment programs. Person-centered planning, positive behavioral reinforcement, more modern version of ABA. ABA and I are not friends. Eventually, I will get to that topic too. Here's hoping. There's only so much time within a day. Our side was able to produce documentation in regards to long-term and short-term results of those treatment programs that had literally just come out that very year. That very year. Specifically in regards to those alternative programs. The JRC provided clinical studies from the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, and their most recent clinical study that they provided that they didn't have a hand in came from the 1980s. Several problems there. First off, none of those studies had anything to do with the GED device, because those studies were done way before the GED device even existed. Those particular studies had a more general purpose in regards to measuring the data in regards to positive outcomes by means of the more general adversive therapy. So, things that were covered within those studies had to do with forcing folks to smell, I think they were salt pellets that were made intentionally horrible to smell. It was literally spanking people with wooden spatulas. It was pinching the soles of their feet until they broke skin and bled. It was putting a towel over the face of the child and then squirting water on it while you had the cloth over their heads type of adversive therapies. If that sounds horrifying, you would be correct. However, those had to do specifically with adversive therapy. Now, JRC, we are well aware of the fact that your GED device is adversive therapy. However, in regards to those studies, you are comparing apples and oranges. None of those studies can prove about the safety and efficiency of the GED device, because none of those studies were done on the GED device. They were done on adversive therapies as a whole in a time period before that device ever existed. They provide absolutely nothing in regards to evidence when we are comparing whether the risks that come with the ESD are greater than the so-called benefits. Okay? Which means that documentation you provided is completely and utterly irrelevant when it comes to the subject at hand. Alright? You have to date, not provided at any point in time any objective third-party clinical study that proves that the GED device is safe, efficient, and has absolutely improved quality of life for these students for the better forever. Because they can't. That device didn't exist. You dug up those reports for nothing. Okay? Now, let's talk about the clinical study you did put up in regards to defending the ESD and trying to prove that they are safe, that they're life-saving, it gives better quality of life. Nobody on a human shock collar has a better quality of life. JRC, someone's knocking at the door. It's called logic and reason. Okay? Spare me. Please. You don't need to actually work in this field to know that that's garbage argument. Alright? For the love of God. Okay? Your clinical study had no controls. Your clinical study had absolutely no follow-up with any of the students that participated in it. See, what they were trying to find out, JRC, is if by using this device, it would help those students modify their more dangerous behaviors, get them down to that baseline I'm always talking about, where you're able to function and be out in the community, kind of like me. Hi, how y'all doing? Anyways, can you prove that it led to forever bringing underneath those students' control those more dangerous behaviors? Can it overall absolutely improve their quality of life and give them that control to the point where they will no longer need to have that device on them? What does their life look like 5 years after leaving the JRC? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. You have not given us any of that information, which means you have proved absolutely nothing. You are an entire school of Karens demanding to see the manager and then railing at the manager that you want to talk to the CEO because they're not buying your rabid insanity. Okay? On our end, on the other hand, in regards to alternative treatment programs, in regards to those who do have issues with self-injurious behavior and aggressive behavior, through means of person-centered planning, positive behavioral reinforcement, modern ABA, OTPT, there was a few others in there as well. We were able to provide the data on those programs up to date from that very year, including longevity studies in regards to how those changes continue to remain with those students afterwards, and details in regards to the positive bettering of their quality of life. We were able to provide that for those alternative treatment programs I just mentioned. We were also able to bring to the table ER documentation that explains in detail the second and third degree burn injuries on the individuals that you forced the GED on. We were able to provide video surveillance footage where you shocked Andre McCollums for the horrific sin of refusing to remove his coat, slammed him on a 4-point board, face down, tied him down with a noise-canceling helmet, and shocked him over 31 times within a 7-hour period. After which, there was clear documentation of the injuries on Andre's face, on his torso, on his legs, on his arms, and the fact that he remained in a catatonic coma for 2 months after that incident took place. We have the ER documentation that details the entire thing. We have the video surveillance footage that backed it up. We had some brave souls who willingly waived their HIPAA rights to provide to the FDA the bizarre behavioral contracts that the JRC forces on their students. And the reason why their testimonies were given more weight than that of the parents the JRC paraded in is, unlike the parents, those folks that waived their HIPAA rights to testify against this device came carrying receipts, which means their own ER documentation from visits to the doctor because of that device, their own psychological records in regards to the post-traumatic stress disorder that came from being forced into a human shock collar. Their stories line up with the evidence at hand. It lines up with the video surveillance footage on hand. Everything that we provided was consistent. Everything came with receipts. JRC came with just trust me, bro. And they came with Kool-Aid drinking parents. Studies that have absolutely nothing to do with the subject matter at hand. And the worst excuse for a clinical study that I have ever seen. And for the love of God, I read the Andrew Wakefield so-called clinical study for his anti-vax batshit insanity. If you're doing worse than Andrew Wakefield, go stare in a mirror and start thinking about life choices, is all I'm saying. Okay? So yeah. A, we've already done the hearing. All the evidence has already been viewed. You cannot prove your case. Screaming that it isn't fair is not a defense. The FDA is being incredibly generous to reopen up comments when they actually have it within the authority to go ahead and push through the ban entirely without it. They're doing this for the sake of transparency. Quit trying to re-argue the exact same crap. It didn't work then, it's not working now. On that note, folks, we're going to go ahead and close out for this one. We don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Please don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea absolutely do. Hope you have a good one. I will see you all in a minute coming back with a Medicaid video. Bye-bye, everyone.